This is the future. This is not the past.
The new XFL will kick off in 2020.
If you smell what the XFL is cooking.
It's still football, but it's professional football reimagined.
This is our moment, our story to tell. This is history begun.
This is the XFL!
Welcome, football fans. This is the week of June 23rd, 2019. This is the road to 2020, and this is the XFL show. I'm Alan.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Bryant.
Sound a little rough there, brother. Showcases 5 and 6 are this weekend in L.A. and Seattle. This is episode 74 over on the West Coast. Brian, are you okay?
I've been hanging out with my best friend in the whole wide world, Coach Moss, and I just, he inspired me to talk a little bit. And I feel like I'm too high pitched. I got to get down.
Are you going to be calling anybody out this episode?
I just know that me and Coach Moss, I feel like we go way back.
Coach Hayes held me every single down.
Oh, man. You and So this episode, everyone, is going to be Bryant talking about his new best friend, Coach Moss, who I heard you're just calling Winston now.
Oh, it's just win. It's just win, baby. That's all it is right now.
Oh, well, Bryant he's been run ragged because he did a lot of XFL activity out in L.A. this week. Not only showcases, but you're going to tell us about another team get-together with fans earlier in the week. Lots of fun for XFL L.A. fans this week to be had. Players coming in to the City of Angels as well. And, of course, XFL Seattle, chock full of recognizable names that played in the NFL and were very popular up in the Pacific Northwest. And a lot to get to. Summer's here, Jake.
Yeah, it's here. There's no getting away from it. And yeah, Bryant, I mean, there's a lot of, I feel like this episode is all about you. And honestly, I'm a little jealous. We're going to just be asking you tons of questions. We're going to be playing clips. You were hanging out with coaches today or coaches this week, presidents last week. You're really doing a big time job.
Jake, you're a little upset when I was rubbing elbows at a Buffalo Wild Wings with the team president. What if I told you I was at a Long Beach bar on the beach rubbing elbows with the team president and the LA XFL head coach?
Yeah, it's somebody else say something.
This week's show is brought to you by Pretty Easy Podcasts, helping podcasters get their shows off the ground and running at a low cost. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com today to get started. Hit up the Contact Us section, fill out your information, and your show could be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all your favorite podcast platforms in no time. It's professional sounding podcast production done the right way at a low rate without you ever having to think about any of the production stuff. You don't have to learn how to edit. You don't have to learn how to get your show wherever you need it to get to. All you have to do is sign up with Pretty Easy Podcasts, worry about the content, worry about being creative and doing your show your way. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com. Well, this is fun for me because last week I was the one that was a little rough running around. But you didn't have to drive and log as many miles as I did, but you probably sat in traffic for as long as I had to drive running around. And we'll pick Bryant's brain and figure out what he saw. And also we're going to play some clips from you for you fans that Bryant was able to get. And some interviews and access. Once again, the league is just being super transparent and awesome to fans and the media alike. Standing right on the field there with Oliver Luck, shooting the breeze about some football. Bryant, that's you don't get that with any other professional league.
Alan, you called it the Comic-Con of football for football fans, and it really was. It was great to see the intensity, the fun that everybody was having on the field. You're right, the transparency is so off the charts. I can't believe the information and the time that has been given to people like us that are just so interested in the XFL and what's going to happen in 2020. And now we're just going to be here relating it back to you listeners. The XFL is really doing a great job, and I'm ecstatic, to be 100% honest.
Yeah, as a fan, you got to really go to a huge fan event this week, a couple of them, and you got a taste. And that's just, an early glimpse at what this league's going to be giving fans in terms of access, interactivity, and of course football, which is what we'll talk about because it's about players again this week. Before we get into what Bryant saw this week, just want to say after last week's show, the feedback we got from our listeners on Patreon, all of our subscribers on your podcast and everybody, YouTube, everywhere, really, where we put the show. The show is everywhere, and tremendous response to all the hard work we put into last week's show. Hopefully more of the same this week, but last week, all the love. Someone, Jake, called last week on social media, I'm not even lying, said episode 373 was a masterpiece. And I'm 90% certain they're talking about all the work you did last week.
You really think so?
I do. I think you're the fan favorite of the show.
I'll take it and say thank you.
It was a masterpiece because of we're all busting our butts, but also just having fun. And that was last week. This week, more great access, more interviews coming up. I also want to say I appreciate the league allowing me to wear my fanny pack on the field. Talk about access. I had my toothpicks, my cell phone, tissue paper if I needed it. It was really the league. They're very welcoming to everybody, and I had a great time, Brian. I'm wondering what about you? Were you able to just be yourself on the field there and have some fun?
Well, I had to adhere to that clear bag policy going into the stadium. You didn't have to do that with your fanny pack. That was I'm just joking. It was. I had my XFL drawstring bag. It was chock full of goodies, just like yours. But you're right. Again, thank you to the league and a masterpiece. Really, I can't believe someone said that. Jake, it is because of you. It had nothing to do with Alan being at the New York Summer Showcase and then going to the DC Summer Showcase the next day, and then on top of that having the president of L.A. Heather Brooks Carrots. None of that had to do with that. It was all you, Jake.
Brian, you're just buttering me up. When are you going to tell us your measurements?
All right, well,
I know you're going to try to get out of it.
I don't know if he's going to have measurements for us, but we learned a lot about the league's approach to players last week. So let's look at what they were doing with Showcases 5 and 6 this week. We had a presence, Bryant, in Los Angeles, and we'll start talking about your week, Bryant, in L.A. with Team XFL Los Angeles with this week's Cover 2.
Going for 2. Go for 2 and the lead.
Patreon.com/This Is the XFL Show. That is the best way to ride down the road to 2020 and beyond. It's where you get exclusive bonus content, extra shows, commercial-free episodes of This Is the XFL Show, and a whole lot more. It's an entire community unto itself. We love our gentle patrons, and we'd love you to check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/This Is the XFL Show. And the beauty of it is there are multiple tiers you could give to, from $1 all the way to $25, and you get a bunch of different content based on what tier you join. Similar to the tier structure of the XFL. Not quite, but it's a tier structure nonetheless, and you're allowed to join it right now. Go check it out. Lots of shows, even non-XFL shows where we talk just plain old football. It's a lot of fun. It is the best way to get through the grueling year of 2019 into kickoff 2020, and then in beyond, it's going to be extra fun because we're going to have so much more on patreon.com/This Is the XFL Show.
We're going to be our own league. We're going to be our own league. And I'm proud to say that as long as Heather and those guys will have me here, if the NFL was to come calling me back, I'd say the NFL. It's as simple as that. I'm all about this XFL, and I'm riding and dying with it. I'm riding and dying with the XFL. I believe in what they're doing. I believe in that process. And what we're gonna, what kind of talent we're gonna put on the field, the coaches and whatnot. So no feeder league. We're gonna stand our own 2 feet, and we're gonna be wearing size 22s at the end of next year.
Riding or dying with the XFL. That's XFL L.A. head coach Winston Moss from Summer Showcases this week. Bryant got to know Winston Moss a whole lot this week, not only at Showcases, but earlier in the week at a really cool event him and his staff and Heather Brooks Carrots put together for fans.
Alan, it was a great event. It was a lot of fun. It was on basically Beach Boulevard, I think is what. No, 2nd Street, excuse me, in Long Beach, one of the busiest streets they have out there in terms of traffic. And yeah, not just Coach Moss, all the coaches were there, the entire staff. We'll probably post some pictures that I took from that night. But Moss is all in, and I think I got that sense on Wednesday. But having this statement made to at the L.A. Summer Showcase just proved that point even more.
He said if the NFL's calling, he's gonna turn them down. And
I mean, that's not what he said.
I'm trying to make.
But yes,
I don't want to have to click that explicit check mark whenever I post the show later. But Jake, hearing a coach say something like that, he's riding and dying with the league and is there to stand on their own 2 feet, not a feeder league. I mean, really positive words there by a very excited coach. Safe to say, I would say Winston Moss seems like the most excited head coach of all the head coaches we've heard talk.
Yeah, at least from who we've heard talk, starting out from the press conference, calling out other people for holding him his entire career. I mean, really, you can't go up there and say, hey, if Jerry Jones calls me tomorrow, I'll see you guys later. You can't do that. So he's saying all the right things, but the thing is, I believe him.
Yes.
He's and I mean, Brian, you did speak with him. Is that correct?
I mean, yeah. We even had a beer together on Wednesday. So
he seems intimidating.
Oh, by far the most intimidating man I've ever been.
He probably doesn't drink a light beer, does he?
No. He did want me to tell everybody that he's a Tito's guy. He did actually want me to say that on the air. No, in all honesty, the question that came from his statement, somebody had asked, what was the XFL's role going to be? Is it going to be a feeder league? Is it going to be a developmental league? And that question was actually directed to team president Heather Carrots, and Winston Moss like, can I take this one? And he took it and he ran with it. He's showing just true passion. It's great to see this out of a coach. And we talked about it before as terms of this is what the XFL needed. They needed someone committed, wanting to be a part of what they're doing here, not just someone who's looking for a step towards the NFL. And he also thanked Oliver Luck that we didn't get the audio of for taking him out of a bad place. He was just fired from the Green Bay Packers after being there for so many years that he decided that when Oliver Luck called him, that he was very thankful for that. So he's thankful, he's ready, he's hungry, he's committed. I keep checking off boxes, everyone, when it comes to this coach, and I haven't skipped any so far.
Yeah, and that is a big difference from the AAF. They just wanted, it appears like they just wanted to get in bed with the NFL, and they wanted somebody else to put up the money and basically be in charge of the league. That is not what the XFL is going to be at all, at least from everything we've heard.
And especially, everybody, even in going into the XFL, has kind of their own agenda for getting involved, right? But when it comes to Winston Moss, and also hearing you talk to Norm Chow as well, Bryant, which we'll play in a little bit, hearing Winston Moss especially, these guys are getting into the league for all the right reasons, and they're saying the right things. You believe them because they mean it. You could tell it because I think Winston Moss is actually having fun being a part of the XFL, and safe to say, Bryant, from all the access you got this week and from the interviews that we're going to play today and everything you've told me, I am going to go out and say L.A. right now is the most fun place for the XFL right now. Winston Moss is putting together not only a very quality football staff, but it's a place, a culture already that I think is the most fun place in the league, and we haven't even kicked off yet.
I had one of the top league execs come from the playing field during 7-on-7 drills to the sideline and mention to some people how this has been the best atmosphere so far that he's witnessed.
The LA atmosphere you're talking
correct, yes. That the LA atmosphere, the intensity on the field has been great. I mean, you should have seen Coach Moss running around, yelling at people. You would have thought he was going to put pads on and just start playing with everybody. He was that involved. He was that passionate about this. There was an instance where someone tackled another player, and Coach Moss lost it. He thought it was the greatest thing, and then about 10 seconds later, he's like, wait, we can't touch each other. Hold on. No contact. So Coach is getting involved. He wants this so bad. And yeah, I think we're having a lot of fun out here. 2 meet and greets so far, and plenty more to come based on my conversations with Heather Carrots, and we're just at the beginning. We don't even have a team identity. When is that coming out, by the way? Anybody know?
Did you really ask? You didn't ask that.
No, I
the
did
one
not ask
question
that.
everybody. No team names this week. Not about that. It's about players this week. Players
Good
only.
crisp football.
And it's about Winston Moss's staff first and foremost, because that's where we spent our time as a show. Bryant, you spoke with him. You spoke with Norm Chow, and it's infectious. I think when fans hear the little bit we have from those coaches today, they're gonna enjoy it. And yes, Winston Moss is the wild card coach of the league. He's the only defensive minded guy when it comes to his background. Full on defensive coach. But he hires Norm Chow, big offensive name, and he's the guy out there. Get one of the coaches in this league getting his first crack at being the man in charge. So there's a lot, a lot of question marks around Winston Moss. But like I said, so fun so far, making you interested, making you excited about XFL L.A. And I think a good argument to have, maybe we could begin it here, and this could eventually be a big Patreon episode, it sounds like. But I've been thinking, Jake, say the league sticks, say the first season's a big hit on TV and everybody's watching. Which team do you think is going to have the most fans nationally or globally?
Well, I mean, conventional wisdom says you go with the biggest markets, but I also wouldn't rule out Seattle just because of that passionate fan base that's been, it's been there for about at least, on the uprise for 10 years now. They're going to get an NHL club there, so I wouldn't rule them out. But you got to look at your New Yorks and your LAs. We do not have a Chicago team this go around. So I think that's the safe bet, is you just go with the biggest markets. The big markets,
of course, I think the teams that win are probably going to get the best rating, once the middle of the season hits. But
perhaps
when you have personalities like Winston Moss and everything going on in LA, I mean, how are fans not going to be interested in at least in the post game and on field interviews with this guy, Bryant?
Well, it's that Howard Stern effect, right? We just want to know what he's going to do next, and that's why people pay attention.
I'm so Coach happy Moss, we got a coach like that. Hey, Bob Stoops is amazing. Mark Trestman's a professional, but we needed a guy like Winston Moss in the XFL. I'm so happy they got him.
He makes these players want to play for him. I mean, you look at every single one of those players on the field looked like they wanted to play for him, and it was a passion. Everybody on the sidelines, I turned into a fan. I took my media hat off for a second and just enjoyed what I was watching, and that's something that the XFL definitely needs to get people behind a certain team.
So Winston Moss, you're going to hear from him in a little bit. Bryant stood on the where were you on the sideline, 50-yard line? Where'd they let you talk to Coach Moss at the showcase?
So real quick, Coach Moss demanded that I go onto the field with him during drills and talk to him then.
How scared were you?
I was so scared. I was next to him, so I felt comfortable. At one point, he was going to go talk to the players. He's like, "I'll be right back." I was like, "Coach, I'm just going to go back to the sideline while you're doing your thing. I'm going to head back." And so I went back, but oh man, Coach Moss again. He's firing on all cylinders, man. I'm trying to keep up with him.
Were you afraid that you were going to have to block him?
Oh no!
Like, okay, I'll give you this. You can ask me anything you want to. All you got to do is stop me.
I probably wouldn't have been recording this episode if that was the case. To be honest with you. I'm not getting in front of that man. That's for sure.
So you're telling us in your interview, we're going to hear in a little bit, there's not a point where he just says, "Headbutt me. I want you to headbutt me." Oh, well, no, I've heard it. It's good. We'll get to that in a moment. But, of course, Oliver Luck was there, and the commissioner gave access to everybody. And the commissioner, I guess, was standing around in a scrum there, Bryant, and answered some questions from the media. And generally, as a show that's been covering it since day one, a lot of questions get asked that we know the answers to in those situations. So how did it go for you when you were in the scrum with Oliver Luck?
The scrum was good. They had a lot of local, recognizable faces I've seen on television before. NBC, ABC was there. There's also some radio personalities as well. And you can see that people are gaining interest. That they're about where we were, a year ago. Understanding what's happening, what's going on. They're starting that that rhythm of getting that information. I would try to throw in a more detailed question here and there, but you could tell that where the vibe for that little scrum was was not where I wanted it to go, but Oliver Luck was gracious enough to kind of go off to the side with me after that scrum and get a little bit more details. So we'll listen to those two in a little bit.
All right, yep. Let's go to the scrum with Oliver Luck speaking to Bryant and the rest of the media that were at XFL Showcase in Los Angeles.
Obviously, Norm Chow has the ties with college local teams. Fred Davis, is there a chance that local guys like SE, UCLA will end up on the LA team?
There's a chance, but that's really up to the head coach and to the scouts and the staff. And we don't want to have any geographical allocation because I think that sort of warps the competitive equity of the league. So all of our players will be chosen through the draft, and it's really up to the head coach, who is also the general manager, and his personnel folks to decide how they want to build the roster.
This week you had your second with the Spring League. You guys went to the Spring League twice. How did it go yesterday? How's everything?
Went well. It was all testing of the 25-second clock and overtime and all these sort of innovations that we have. We'll do one more session with the Spring League later this summer, late July, down in Mission Viejo. Fox and ESPN, and ABC, our broadcast partners will be there as well. Their input is very much appreciated, and they've obviously know how to produce football games and do a great job. So it's all coming together fairly well. But the session this past week went very well down in Mission Viejo.
What about conference alignment? Have you guys talked about that with teams and how they're going to align with the schedule and stuff?
Yeah, so we're working on schedules right now. I think what you'll see is the 4 teams in the West, which will be Seattle, L.A., Houston, and Dallas, and then, of course, 4 in the East, St. Louis, which I guess is on the western edge of the Mississippi, but whatever. St. Louis, Tampa, New York, and D.C. will be in the East.
There you go. Conference alignment kind of revealed right there, Brian, in that scrum.
Yeah, it was assumed, I think, by many, but we got it confirmed by Oliver Luck in terms of where the conferences will align. No more North and South. It's definitely going to be East and West. But Oliver Luck mentioning the Spring League, one more iteration, having the ESPN, Fox, and ABC down there come in. I believe it's August, maybe it's July, I forget. For the Spring League. So giving some information out there, and again, confirming no geographical allocation.
Yeah, we've talked about that, how this is truly open in terms of the draft and the free agent signings in the XFL and how the rosters get built. Did anything throughout showcases get revealed or leaked or said to you about the Spring League in California last week before the showcase, about anything that might have happened in terms of changing their opinions on some rules that they've been working on or new ideas or anything at all?
I didn't see anything new when it comes to just confirmations. It did seem like they were driving this 25-second clock hard. I mean, hard. There were coaches yelling 25 seconds on the field during drills, making sure plays are coming out quickly. So I want to say that's pretty solid. Alan, I did also hear something about a 1 foot inbounds will be inbounds for them as well.
So the college rule then.
The college rule in terms of catches will be 1 foot, not 2 feet. So I did hear that as well. So there'll be one more instance of the Spring League. Hopefully they put the final touches on that come later this summer.
Yeah, that's I like it. I'm a fan of 1 foot in. Two's you're just asking for too much, and you're really opening it up to too much controversy, Jake.
I mean, do you think that perhaps they're just going for 1 foot, just for less stall and more ball?
Yeah,
there's less to review.
Less to review. It's easier to call, and why? I've always thought, why 2? Oh, and a knee equals 2.
Well,
how about
you got 2 of them? You might as well use them both.
Any body part. Let's just any body part that lands in that in bounds, and let's move on and get to the next play. 25 seconds. 25 seconds, right, Bryant?
Yeah, Alan. Unfortunately, I want to apologize a little bit because I had some technical difficulties with the sound. A lot of wind going on, so a little bit was inaudible. But most of the interviews were talking about the pace and how the XFL. When I asked what's different between the NFL and the XFL, most say the pace. That's what's going to happen. So you're right, Jake. That's a good point. 1 foot in helps with that pace and makes it go a little bit faster.
The players are all going to have to be in great shape. They're going to have to be in really good shape. And cardio will be crucial. And the good thing is that a lot of these players are pros and have been pros and have the experience.
Good, crisp football.
And, the names we've heard that were in L.A. and the names we've heard that are in Seattle that are going to potentially be XFL football players. Very impressive, especially when you consider the experience in the NFL and the AAF even. And the name I guess everybody was talking about in L.A., Bryant, was former Trojan and Washington Redskin tight end Fred Davis.
He was a sought-after commodity for the media, for myself, for anybody in attendance. Really wanted to see where he was. Had some travel difficulties, so he arrived a little bit late, but still got on the field, practiced with the team. With the other players, no team yet, and really enjoyed himself. And he looked like he was willing to give this another go, just for the love of the game.
You had NFL quality tight ends there. You had Raheem Moore, who was a Broncos defensive back, and Jake, I would say the man who's solely responsible for Joe Flacco ever winning a Super Bowl. Had the
that and pass interference.
Yeah, he had the unfortunate play, losing it in the lights, I guess, against Flacco. But Raheem Moore was there and working out, and so was Scooby Wright, who's a recent standout in the Pac-12, Bryant, linebacker who played at Arizona and was an AAF player as well.
Yeah, he was there. It was very defensive highlighted in terms of the players that were on everybody's radar. They were all wearing the blue shirts. So
in all honesty, the only offensive name I've heard that was actually there, unless you could tell us one, was Fred Davis, and everybody else I heard was a defensive player.
Yeah, it was very defensive driven. Really, there were some big guys though on the offensive side of the ball.
In terms of drills, what did you watch the most?
The drills were basically your 3-cone drill, your 40-yard dash. You had some tackling drills as well for the defensive.
The one-on-ones was what I was watching. They have wide receiver DB one-on-one getting passes thrown with the quarterback, and the lineman one-on-one trying to get to the tackling dummy, because that's what I saw in DC.
They had those as well. Alan, did they have referees at your showcase?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. They had referees at ours, which was pretty nice. For the 7-on-7s and the 1-on-1s. I think the 7-on-7s is really just took the cake for the whole thing. It was very intense.
How fast was it moving, right? Because they had them separated into teams, and there was talk about less stall. As soon as a play was over, you had to run off, and the next play was already happening with the next group of players.
Norm Chow was there calling plays. It was great. He was showing everybody what they needed to do, line them up, get them up there. There was somebody yelling 25 seconds, telling everybody, reminding them of the quickness. It was very intense in terms of that. But again, very defensive side of the ball. The last play on 7-on-7 that was an offensive touchdown was pretty cool.
Will Sutton, a former Bears defensive tackle, was there as well. Recognizable name to many. And then the name that has just been on my mind for the whole week is Jeremiah Spicer, Bryant, who's got an amazing story. If you check it out, it's in the show notes this week for everybody. On bullbeat.com, they wrote up about Jeremiah Spicer, who he's a linebacker, was at Showcases, but his story's amazing. Went to Riverside Community College, basically was born on Skid Row in Los Angeles, and no parents, and has really fought hard for some NFL tryouts and is looking to break into the XFL. An incredible story, and a guy who just isn't quitting. It's an amazing thing to watch. Did you catch a glimpse of him at all at Showcase? And have you even heard of Jeremiah Spicer, Bryant?
Oh no, Jeremiah. I'll say I've had the fortune and the luck to actually speak with the man, and he's very passionate, very committed. Just wanted a chance. When I first saw him, was actually at the first meet and greet with the LA team, and he hadn't gotten his invite there yet, and he was just kind of over there, getting his name out there. And then within the next week or so, he got that email from Eric Galco saying that you were invited to the LA showcase. So a great story, like you said. He's been through it all. He's been playing some arena ball. Led the league in tackles, from my understanding, as well last season. And he's been working out with the Chargers locally here. So a great story, a great individual. I don't think I've been pulling for someone so hard as I have for Jeremiah Spicer to make a roster.
And again, the summer showcase is really opening up to the stories of the individuals that are going to try to make the rosters in this league. And there will be no shortage of incredible stories of, perseverance, of guys who were told no, but just kept trying anyway. I mean, the son of the subject of the movie Invincible, Vincent Papali, his son was in DC trying out as well. I mean, that's just kind of mind-boggling when you think of everything that his father went through. That really embodies what kind of the XFL is all about. And if you guys remember the linebacker Sam Mills, who was an undersized, just beast of a linebacker in the NFL, 80s through the 90s. I mean, that guy played at Montclair State, and I mean, it was just really kind of symbolic to me being there last week. His name, of course, is on a big banner outside of their football field, and that presence of that name, that kind of player, is exactly the kind of player that the XFL is all about. And Coach Moss, I believe, even said it at one point, Bryant, that I heard on one of the clips you sent me to put into this week's show. The NFL has great players, but the XFL is going to have players who just want it so badly and are going to give so much more effort than he's even seen in the NFL.
Heart. It's what he brought it down to. These players are going to have a lot of heart, and he said not that the NFL players don't have heart, but these XFL players are going to have to bring a lot. They're going to have to work hard. They're going to have to compete, and they're going to have to play with a lot of heart. And he says that there's probably going to be more heart in the XFL than in the NFL.
It's amazing. It's amazing the opportunity, and it's amazing the names we're seeing. I mean, if we go up to Seattle, really, I don't know if it's because I covered a couple of these guys when they were New Orleans Saints working Louisiana radio, Jake, but I mean, Seattle's got a lot of very recognizable former NFL names. Bishop Sankey was a running back for the Titans. Hauli Kikaha was an edge rusher for the Saints who very promising. Injuries kind of had him losing his roster spot there in New Orleans. Obum Gwancham, also a Saints defensive lineman. And then a big old hoss that used to play for the Steelers, Alameda Ta'amu, a Husky, also at Seattle Summer Showcases. But when you think about NFL talent, Jake, that was getting the reps and getting the chances, but then were phased out due to injury, some guys like that would have to go off and, okay, it's over. I'm not going to get another shot because of that leg injury. Time to find a job at UPS or something. But these guys have another shot at playing football professionally.
Yeah, perhaps that's what they would have been thinking. I was thinking maybe since we did New York and L.A. already, they brought out all the big guns. But apparently that's not going to be the case. They're sprinkling them in all over the country, everywhere that they're doing these showcases, and Seattle is going to be no different from what we've seen before. And really, that's what you want. You don't want them to overload, say, the L.A. Summer Showcase.
Yeah,
with the former NFL experience guys just there.
Yeah, and for my money, the names that are in terms of being recognizable and me knowing what kind of players these guys are, I would say just looking at the roster in Seattle. It's probably the best showcase in terms of talent that we know of already, but that's not what the showcases are all about, Bryant. They're all about discovering talent as well. And those sheets, we were getting them at the first few showcases, but apparently you did not get a roster breakdown in Los Angeles. The league is shying away from that, you think?
No, actually, it was just a miscommunication between the league and their supplier. I guess they didn't deliver the box of the team rosters to the actual event. But regardless, you could still see the intensity on the field, and we're going to try to get that list for you guys. We'll see if we can actually obtain that. But Seattle, lots and lots of players going there. Alan, you're right though. It's not about these star players. It's about finding the diamond in the rough. If you go back into our archives and listen to our original interview with Eric Galco from back in December, I want to say, he said that the XFL can't afford to miss on some of these players. They have to find those players that the NFL looked over for whatever reason. And so that's what these showcases are really about.
All right, cover 2 is basically over. Real quick, fun bonus cover 2. Jackson Hayes, the son of the St. Louis head coach Jonathan Hayes. Guys, don't know if you heard this, but
Except that Coach Hayes.
His son, I don't know if he fouls on every play, but he played well enough in college at Texas to get drafted as a lottery pick to the New Orleans Pelicans. So congratulations to him. A head coach of the XFL has a son as a first rounder in the NBA. Pretty cool.
Do you think Coach Hayes let him go, when he was going up to get his thing, or do you hold on to him as long as he possibly
Oh, you've been hanging out with Winston Moss too much.
Stop holding me, Dad.
Stands for excellence.
Okay. Also, real quick, sorry. Cover 2's over, I promise. But side note, I want to apologize to Eric Galko because I wanted to speak with him so badly in DC, but I had to hit the road, get back and edit shows, and I guess it just sounds like it's an excuse probably, but would have loved nothing more than talk to Eric Galko for 4 hours on the field. Brian, you got to in L.A., but unfortunately, technical difficulties. We can't play that interview this week, but can you give us a real quick recap of what you and the XFL's head scout were talking about?
Yeah, I guess I should apologize to Eric Galko as well. Taking the time for that interview and then just the wind really affected the audio quality. But we talked a little bit about what was next for him, how he felt these were going. He did mention that after every showcase, Alan, he is reviewing what the coaches, the feedback, any data that's available to him. So he's constantly looking at what's going on. Also, we talked about contracts and how the XFL contracts will be kind of structured for these players. There's going to be a base salary, and then something that I don't think we heard of that's going to be there. It's called an activation bonus. So if players are active for that week, they get a little bit of a bonus. And then, of course, I think something that's been somewhat confirmed is the win bonus. So you win a game, you get a little bit more. So a really great conversation with Eric Galko. Always nice talking to him. And he also talked about how the TV deal gave him some legitimacy, and that's what players really want.
Yeah, the idea that you get to play on national TV every week is pretty exciting if you're a player, I would assume. But Eric Galko, he's got an awesome job. I mean, he's working crazy hours. I don't know if you saw him. He looked like a guy who works hard to me, Brian. He looked like a guy who maybe doesn't sleep too much, but loves it. But also the reward of he gets to email everybody and, be a part of the reaction of bringing the bearer of good news, essentially, to the players. Did he say if he's going to be that same kind of guy for the contracts? Is he going to be the one reaching out to these players when they do get signed by the league? Did he give a glimpse into how that might work?
He just mentioned that in a few months they would start signing players. He didn't mention really who would be the one reaching out, whose ink was going to be on that, whose signature was going to be at the bottom of those pages. But you got to really think about them. I mean, think of like an architect, designing a building, and then when it's complete, he looks at it and admires it and says, look how great this is. I think that's what Eric Galko is going to do come kickoff in February of 2020.
Yeah, it's crazy to think, the NFL, 32 teams, each, constructing their own rosters. Eric Galko is going to have a hand in constructing the rosters of all these teams, essentially, as the man, really the point man for the scouting for all these showcases and all the players that are going to be coming from NFL training camps as well. So again, we had the audio, but the wind damaged some audio for this week. But we do have plenty more to play for you, interviews and such, and we are going to hit those in this week's Hot Read. Hey, Brainiacs, Long Island Iced Tea here. Real quick, want to tell you that this week on Brainbuster Radio, we're talking pro-graps with you. WWE Stomping Grounds is on Sunday, and we will discuss it thoroughly. And who knows, at any moment, 24/7 championship could change hands. It might change hands on Brainbuster Radio. You never know in the sport of professional wrestling. Subscribe to Brainbuster Radio on any podcast gimmick and find out what the hype's all about. Join us this week and check out brainbusterradio.com for much more.
Blue 58! Blue 58! Go! Hey, Ric Flair! Ric Flair! Pepper, Flip, Caliber. O-Town, Happy, Jolly, Drunk, Buster, Boomer, Tiger! I think he's got a hound too, Rodney, I think. 319!
right, in this week's Hot Read, we are going to be listening to three interviews that Bryant was able to get at XFL Showcases in L.A. We will do Winston Moss, we'll do Norm Chow, and your one-on-one with Oliver Luck. Bryant, starting with head coach Winston Moss, who we've been talking about a lot this show. He's your new best friend, but what do you say we go ahead and listen to what you and him talked about during XFL Showcases in L.A.?
It was a great day. We challenged them early. They responded, and I'm tired as hell. But it's a great day.
You're happy with the talent that you saw here, the level of play?
Yeah, no doubt. I trust Oliver and his staff and the whole process. I trust everything they're doing, and it really doesn't matter who they give, because we're gonna take them, we're gonna coach them like we did today, and we're gonna get the best out of them.
Right, because there will be a pool of players, so the players here might end up on other teams. Are you taking secret notes and whatnot? Make sure that you get Fred Davis or a couple of other guys on your squad.
If I tell you, I have to kill you. we got to keep that in house, and this is an evaluation process, right? And we're going to take this and what they did today and study it up as along with the other 7 showcases and see if first of all, the other 7 showcases will not stack up to ours. It will not, and so we just got to see what happens.
Coach, with the most recent NFL experience than anybody else, how do you feel, it compares to the XFL right now?
I think the NFL obviously has great talent. They're on another level, but these guys will play with more heart. And I'm saying that the NFL doesn't have that deal, but these guys are hungry. I'll put it to you that way. These guys are hungry. And so when you give that recipe for opportunity, man, great things can happen.
Given that experience with success and being in the NFL, what are you prepared to tell them about what it's going to take to play and to be successful in this league?
Work hard, compete, and challenge yourself every day to get better. Simple as that. The recipe for success is not hard. It's what you're willing to sacrifice and the time that you're willing to commit to put into being well. Having success is not hard. You got to be willing to do the work. You got to be willing to work it. Simple as that. And we're going to, and as you said, we will work hard, and we're going to get it done today. We're going to get it done.
Sorry, Winston. What was it like being out there working with your coaching staff that you built?
I love it. Pep picked his intensity up. Norm picked his intensity up. Dave and I had a great one-on-one session with the running backs. I've known these guys for years. I know them. I know they're great men, great character. We're going to have great chemistry, and hopefully that translates over into the players, where when the players see that we care so much about winning and about each other, that ship gravitates and hopefully it leads to a championship season. What's up with that beard over there?
Free agent, man. Free agent beard, brother.
Coach, what about the most recognizable offensive coordinator in LA history from the show? How did you get him?
I invited them to the hotel. I took them into a part of the hotel that was probably choking, and I told him, you got to come and you got to be our offensive coordinator. And as he was gasping for air, he said yes. I'm pleased as hell to have Norm Chow. He's a legend around here. He knows offense. I couldn't be more happy to have him. He's a great kid. I'm telling you.
How about Pepper?
Pepper Johnson has needed an opportunity for so long. Belichick disciple, great player with those great Giant defenses, did a great job coaching wherever he went.
Now, Brian, I know that we had some, wind there causing some audio difficulties, but did I hear Winston Moss say that he pinned Norm Chow down and forced him to be his offensive coordinator?
Are you trying to have me implicate my best friend in some sort of crime or something like that? What are you trying to do here? I plead the fifth, sir. Winston Moss is just a character everywhere you go, man. You ask him a question like that, he's going to give you a funny answer, then give you the serious one right after. Yes, he did say that, but I'm telling you, his intensity level was off the chain, and that's why he was so tired when he started that interview.
He knows what it takes to build a great and competitive football team.
And how many people were in that scrum? It sounded pretty lively. I had some good scrums there with Pep Hamilton in DC, but it seemed like you had a decent crowd around Coach Moss there in LA. How was the media presence at Showcase there in Los Angeles?
Media presence was pretty good. They had to look a couple times for my name on the list. There's quite a few of them on there. I'd say that scrum had at least a dozen people, if not more. That man with the beard right there was a local LA radio, Vic the Brick. I think I'm trying to remember his actor. So you had some big names. NBC was there, like I mentioned. ABC. They were all there covering this, so it was pretty big. I would say the media presence was pretty high.
Listen, if you have Vic the Brick at an event in Los Angeles, that means it's an event. So that means XFL L.A. has officially arrived, as far as I'm concerned, Jake. I will say there was media there were TV, there was radio, there were print in DC and New York, but there were not local legends. I'd say national treasures like Victor Brick Jacobs in L.A.
Yeah, I don't know Mr. Brick as well as you guys are talking him up, but I'll take your word for it at least.
If people not from LA would know Vic the Brick maybe as the guy in the background who wears a big fuzzy hat, has a giant beard, and you'd see him like in the locker room interviewing like a Dodger or a Laker, and maybe even I think they've aired his stuff like on ESPN where he like says some sort of Way of the Warrior quote to Kobe Bryant and like says like a Japanese proverb, and then Kobe bows to him because he's so wise. I mean, this is so cool though. The spectacle really was you're saying there was spectacle in Los Angeles, which is what it's all about in that market. It's kind of coming together in that regard. The buzz is there, and that's so tough, I think, already in LA.
XFL, welcome to Hollywood, and this is what it takes to succeed in this market. Jake, I don't know if it's going to drive you nuts to see how LA is successful or not based on their antics, but this is the way you got to do it out here, and to get people involved, to get people to want to come back, to know what's to know that something unexpected is probably going to happen. That's how you keep LA fans intact. And again, I want to apologize for the wind. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get Bryant one of those wind covers for his mic.
Well, listeners, if you don't like the wind, subscribe to our Patreon. No, I'm just joking.
Do you need me to lend you a sock? Perhaps, Brian.
Let's full disclosure, listeners. We did not air the windy portions of the show on the normal feed and the good portions on the Patreon feed. Although you get way more on the Patreon, we're airing the stuff that's usable this week, and even then it might have some uncomfortable wind in the background, but hopefully you could get through it, power through it with us. Winston Moss there in a scrum with the media. Very cool. Let's move on now to his offensive coordinator, Bryant, who you chatted with one-on-one, a Los Angeles legend, Norm Chow.
Hey, Coach, how does it feel to be back on the field?
Oh, it was fun. It's fun. It's really fun. And working for Winston is just a joy. He's full of life and energy. We got to get this XFL L.A. thing going. I'm a Dodger fan. I'm a Clipper fan, but we want to make a mark as well.
For sure. And I saw you calling out the plays. It looked like you were in your element out there.
Yeah. We wanted to go fast. We wanted to give a lot of kids the opportunity. We can look at the tapes. It was fun.
What made you want to come to the XFL? I mean, you played so many opportunities over.
Yes and no. Winston, for one, I didn't know him before. He reached out. We got there was some chemistry there, and he's a good man. And hey, I'm an LA guy, and let's get the XFL going as well.
LA guy. Heard from some that Norm Chow, Bryant, turned other jobs down because they weren't in Los Angeles. talking about riding or dying with a city. Norm Chow was seemingly waiting for this opportunity.
Alan, remembering that we don't want to put the explicit check mark on this episode, do you remember my text message to you when we realized that Norm Chow was going to be the offensive coordinator of the XFL L.A. team?
I believe it said Norm Chow, but with some sort of exclamation or adjective in between Norm and Chow.
It's a Norm darn Chow.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Norm Daniel Chow. Maybe if this was Texas.
Did you say the GD word, bro?
Norm Chow in LA. I thought I was I was never a USC guy. I was always a UCLA guy. He did coach at UCLA as well, but he is known for being the offensive coordinator during the prime years of Pete Carroll's USC tenure. And to grab him, to get him, that's another way you hook the media for sure. That's one way. And just it's a great offensive mind. And what I told him when I first met him on Wednesday, because I met him at the meet and greet as well, I said, I don't care who anybody else has, because we have Norm Chow. And that's how I see it. Norm Chow was running the offense out there, calling plays, telling players to break huddles when they weren't, correcting their mistakes, get on that side when they were supposed to be on the other side. It was intense. Norm Chow is fully committed. Looks great, and it seems like him and Winston go way back, and they seem like the best of friends. Not as good as friends as us, but definitely he's a good friend of Winston Moss.
This is, if Vince has already said on the show and on Patreon, I believe, guys, just how impressed he was with this hire. Norm Chow is the offensive coordinator in Los Angeles, but really could end up being the most important one because of the fact that Winston Moss is going to be more of a CEO type and lean towards the defense, while all the other coaches are going to have a hand in their offense. Even Bob Stoops, who is going to be a CEO as well. Bob Stoops' team's known for great offenses, pretty good defenses too, but all the coaches are so offensive minded. You had to have a great OC in LA, Norm Chow, the legend. I'm just bummed there, Bryant. I mean, I cut a little bit out from that interview that was a little distorted, but at no point did I hear you doing the Wayne's World, "We're not worthy" to Norm Chow. That was your chance.
Well, here, you're right. I should have. But Norm Chow is so humble that it doesn't feel like you have to. It's so weird because I feel like I was just talking to someone, he had his lunch in front of him and he was totally gracious enough to take a pause and actually talk to me for a quick second. So Norm Chow is going to be great for this LA market. You're right. The defensive-minded coach in Winston Moss needed a great offensive mind, and he found that in Norm Chow.
And real quick, before we move on to the one-on-one with Oliver Luck here, I mean, we'll probably air these in and out of breaks or whatever in the future because it's so cool. But I think it's worth noting, Jake, take a listen to a little favor that Bryant was able to get from Norm Chow, who has apparently changed the name of our show.
This is Norm Chow from XFL L.A., and you're listening to the XFL L.A. show.
So you're listening to the XFL L.A. show now.
I know
Football
you
fans.
guys have already picked your team. I have not yet. So,
Jake, you got to be leaning towards LA, though. I mean, regardless of team colors and names. I mean, come on.
I mean, yeah, with the promos that Coach Moss has been cutting, probably right now.
Oh, look at that. So, see, the thing is, though, but this isn't some big reveal. We're not changing the name of this is the XFL L.A. show. As much as Bryant and I would love that, we do want to remain, neutral in covering the league and talking about all the teams from now beyond to when kickoff happens, and we are rooting for the LA team, Bryant. But the fact is, the entertainment, the spectacle, the names are in LA right now, at least for us, and it's really exciting. And that was so cool that Norm Chow did that for the show, and we're looking forward to it, man. I can't wait for you to give us your next recap of when you and Coach Chow and Coach Moss go out for some. What were you guys drinking? Tito's, you said?
Tito's it is. Alan, as long as I'm on the clock, yes. But again, I'm not going to let you into our personal friendship that me and Coach Moss have. At least not at this point.
I love Tito's, though. It's a great American vodka. Come on. All right. Well, let's go to our last bit of business you got into at the Summer Showcase in L.A., Bryant. Your first chance, your first opportunity. I've hung out with him before. I've spoken to him, and he's a very nice man. And he had a new haircut when you talked to him from last week's interview on the field. Commissioner Oliver Luck speaking with the show, and Bryant got to talk to him briefly at XFL Summer Showcase in Los Angeles.
Now we're finally turning our attention to players. And as I said, this is sort of the bottom tier, not to be critical of these guys, but they're not in the NFL camp, right? And there's reasons for that. Even with a guy like Fred Davis, there's reasons. Or, Hakeem Nicks was with us, and, Landry Jones or Robert Meacham, other really solid, Christine Michael, really solid players. So, I ask myself kind of every day, are we doing what we need to be doing today for February kickoff? And I think we're in pretty good shape. We got still a ton of things to do, but
are there going to be opportunities for these players to move up in tier during the season, or is it kind of?
No, I think once you're tiered, because it's just sort of too difficult with salaries and accounting procedures and all that. So, we may have 20 players per team get signed by an NFL team.
Now, short term, that would be your goal, right? To get get the quality of the players into the NFL. But long term, obviously, you're going to want that number to dwindle down, people to stay with the XFL.
Well, yeah, we certainly want continuity, right? There's no question about that. We also realize, though, that we're not a developmental league. You've heard me say that 1,000 times. But we also know that players want to play in the NFL, and if they want to use us as a stepping stone, a springboard. Come on, we're happy because that process, that approach, I think, will give us the best player. If we said no, you're locked in for 2 years or 3 years, I don't think many players would come play for us, right? Good players. And it's fair to say. Listen, I'm a realist. I know the NFL has been and is and will be for many, many years the gold standard. So I certainly appreciate that guys want an opportunity if it's offered to them to take advantage of it.
I'm a look at. I put all my things on a list when I try to put a year together.
Right.
In that sense, is your list checked off for the first year at least?
I think so. I really do. I think all the time, but I sit on airplanes and say, okay, are there things we should be doing now? What am I missing? You know what I mean? And so I think we're in a pretty good spot. And we're thinking about. It all changes. The deeper we get in, the closer we get to the opening day, the more we think about certain things that we didn't think about a year ago.
The commish, Bryant, how'd you like that, talking to the man who's putting that whole thing together?
Hey, that was quite. I'm jealous that you've had a few interviews with him already, but that was my first time because I wasn't around when you guys interviewed him back in last September. Go back to the archives if you want to see his original interview with us, but that was my first time talking to the commissioner, and he was gracious enough to give me some extra time after his little scrum just to get a little bit more in depth than some of the local media here, because we've been covering this since day one, and it was great. He's very gracious with his time. He's very transparent as he can be, and he's honest, right? He's telling us about these players. Alan, you brought it up last week that these players are going to be your tier 1, maybe some tier 2 players in there here and there, but really they're not in the NFL for a reason, and the XFL is going to try to get these players to play for their league. Jake, you can't you can't have these players expect to be tier 1 or tier 2 players, right?
Well, there's only going to be one tier 1 player on each team, correct?
From my conversations with him, yes, one tier 1, and and I'm going to just say a few tier 2s. We'll go with that.
Yeah, we'd have to go back and listen to the archives possibly, or just do a search to see how many tier 2s there would have to be. But there's a limit on these things for a reason.
And Oliver Luck is he's at the end there. Bryant revealed that a year into it for him, and it's not like a routine or anything. It's changing constantly. It's new ideas. It's things that you might think are set in stone aren't, because they can't just yet, because you have to be open to suggestion. You have to be open to new ideas in the league. For that reason, maybe we haven't gotten a rule book yet, team names, because the league is truly, You bring up lists there, making sure everything gets checked off before official announcements, official decisions are made, and the right people are put in place, and all of that. Oliver Luck kind of revealed a lot of the process into building this league there, I think, talking about doing work on airplanes. I mean, it's nonstop, and it's constantly changing. It would be frustrating for a lot of people. You have to be a certain personality type. Oliver Luck, we've been saying all along, is the perfect kind of guy to be running this league. And I think that right there just says exactly why.
Well, let's be real. I mean, if I asked Oliver Luck that question in a sense that I just want to gauge, where he was in the process. He's not going to come out here and say we're behind schedule. We're not doing what we want. We've got so many things. He's not going to do those things. We know that. But to understand where his mindset is in that, yes, we are checking things off the list, but at the same time, I'm adding more stuff to that list at the same time. I think that's kind of where his mindset's at. Jake Allen, convincing man find another doppelganger better than Oliver Luck. Working on airplanes, probably calling people over to his dining room table, every once in a while to have these meetings late at night. He's working constantly, and I think that's what is needed for this league to succeed. We talked about on our Patreon this past week about what the AAF did or didn't do leading up to their demise in 2019. The XFL is trying to do the opposite and planning and working hard. Even Coach Moss towards the end of the day today called out the AAF and saying that. That's why we're also best friends, by the way. He called out the AAF, said we're not going to be doing these things the way the AAF did. We are doing these the right way, the best way that we possibly can. And I think that's what Oliver Luck's really just trying to say in those comments.
And then, he revealed, I know you told me we might have not been able to make it to air there, but about players themselves, Oliver Luck talking about that, how that's changing too, how the AAF comes along and changes, some plans, but also shows that there are players out there who went to the AAF that could have actually been practice squad NFL guys, but they chose the AAF over that. So he, believes that gives the XFL a really good chance at getting those kind of players and other really good players that are NFL caliber or NFL types.
Yeah, we also talked a little bit, unfortunately, to make the air about those fringe players, as he likes to call them, where do they get cut, make a practice squad, talk a little bit about those contracts that he was talking about. I believe they're called futures contracts. Does somebody wait around for one of those? I gave the example of Mark Sanchez because Mark Sanchez did not sign with the team until week 14 of last year. Does a player stick around 14 weeks hoping for a contract? Or do they say, hey, I'm going to commit myself to the XFL and play in February? I think that's where the XFL is going to find a good chunk of players. A lot of people are going to commit themselves to the XFL just for the opportunity and the guarantee to play. Because who knows what happens if you miss that draft in October? What's going to happen after that? We haven't really gotten to that. Maybe that'll be the next discussion we have with the league. What happens after October to players that maybe become available?
Yeah, you could get a sense also Oliver Luck really believes those players are there and the league is going to be able to convince them to come join the XFL. We saw in a print article, I believe from The Athletic, right, Bryant, that we talked about on Patreon, where he gave the example, I think Cardale Jones with the Los Angeles Chargers, a third-string quarterback behind two decent quarterbacks in Phillip Rivers and Tyrod Taylor. There are guys like that who are good, but they're just not going to see the field in the NFL, so why not go play in the XFL? And the thing is, the summer showcases they're well and good. They're great. They're fun. But really, really top-tier players in the XFL aren't really coming for another few months.
Well, Jake, hear me on this statement. Tell me what you think. The people will say, why would a third-string quarterback go from the NFL and go to the XFL when they're making so much money? Well, that's not the type of player the XFL wants. The XFL wants a player who maybe doesn't care so much about the money, and they just want to show out their skills. So I think that is an interesting statement, but at the same time, the XFL might not want players who want to stick around for money in the NFL.
Well, I certainly don't think that they're going to turn down someone that wants to jump from the NFL that still could have a spot on a roster to the XFL. But yeah, I mean, they're looking for those cusp guys, and these players they're going to have to decide whether they want to bet on themselves or not. If they get offered multiple years for an XFL deal versus holding out, not making an XFL team, and then hoping to be picked up on an NFL team, if their quarterback goes down or as the number 3 or something. So it's about betting on yourself. I think is really what it is. But these past NFL guys, they have the luxury where they can gamble and lose because they still have money in the bank. Unfortunately, that's not going to be true for a lot of these players.
The XFL 5-6 showcases down. 5 and 6 are down, and now we go to 7 and 8. St. Louis and Tampa Bay up next. Bryant, anything else that maybe we didn't hit on your adventure in the XFL Los Angeles' Summer Showcase?
Not too much. Just a shout out to the staff members over there that welcomed me with open arms. It really was, humbling to meet some of the people that we've been working with. And this is also a shout out to my best friend, Coach Moss. You're the greatest.
See, I knew that $20 I slipped the league marketing people would go a long way.
That did not happen.
Take care of my buddy out there. Make sure he gets a Tito's with Coach Moss. No, that's all just the league being super cool.
That's hearsay.
Yeah, that's the league. The league. Hey, all we did was go up there and say, hey, we're covering the league and we want to be a part of it. We want to, talk to the players, the coaches, and everybody, and learn more. And the league has opened themselves up, wide open arms, bringing us, every fan, in. And I said it last week. I'll say it again. If you have a chance to go to Tampa Bay or St. Louis for a summer showcase, go. It is like a festival or a Comic-Con. Brian, I mean, was I exaggerating?
No, not at all. You know what? I didn't mention this at all, but there was a decent amount of fans and family members and things like that in the stands. You guys are gonna make fun of me, but last year when I went to the AAF, they didn't allow that, and this is just another great step. There are a lot of people out there, and go if you get the opportunity. Even if it's for an hour, to see the intensity of these players, the intensity of the coaches, and everybody in between. It's a lot of fun.
And you get to meet them and maybe even have a beer or two with your XFL head coach. Who knows? I mean, the league is being really awesome to fans as they try to build their identities in each market. Be a part of it. Be not only a football fan, but a member of that community. That's what this league is going to be all about. We're just so happy the league's letting us cover it as closely as we are, and we can't wait till next week to talk about another showcase. Get ready for the 4th of July. Team names, Jake? Think team names are gonna? No team names.
No, I don't think yet.
Is that all right? I'm cool with it. I'm down with the Los Angeles whatevers. If you are, Brian.
I am too. Jake, is there any chance we're going to see you in either St. Louis or Tampa based on the jealousy level at all?
If it was just jealousy level, definitely. But unfortunately, my work schedule right now will not allow it.
Well, if you want to play hooky, Jake, I think there's no way the fiance is going to let me go to Tampa. Oh, I want to go so bad. There's going to be so many SEC players there. By the way, not just our gentle patrons, but listeners, you can check out our Patreon where Bryant is putting together a comprehensive list of conference representation at the summer showcases. That's NCAA conferences, the Power Fives. And do we have a leader in the clubhouse after 6, Bryant, or have you not put together the West Coast showcases yet?
Well, I just, we're just wrapping up the West Coast, so I don't have it on the West Coast. But as far as the 4 that have happened so far, the SEC obviously leads the way. And I believe the Big 12 is in second, but that's based off the Texas showcases for sure.
The battle for conference supremacy never ends in college football, and the battle of conferences will happen. We found out the conference alignment this week. We found out a lot about XFL Los Angeles' staff. Found a lot out about the great players that Seattle had at their showcase. A very, very fun week in the XFL. We'll be back next week for episode 75. 75 weeks we've been covering it, and we're not stopping. Riding or dying with you and the XFL on the way to 2020. For Bryant, for Jake, I'm Alan. This is the XFL Show. Remember, they're listening.